Good morning. So happy to be here. I thank Health 2.0 for the opportunity, and glad you guys are here to listen. I'm David. I'm a recovering orthopedic surgeon. Wisdom is using knowledge and experience to connect dots and solve puzzles. My management team and I at PopDoc feel inspired and fortunate. I will explain the scientific innovation we invented in a few minutes, but it involves digital therapeutic exercise programs that incorporate a thing called fascia training. But first, I'm going to share how we got there and why we think calling things by the wrong names has prevented meaningful medical progress for many years. I believe there are 6 words that are killing more Americans than cancer and heart disease combined. The medical community calls outsiders charlatans, junk scientists, or quacks as we read about their healthcare solution claims. How could we have missed this? We refers to the doctors and physical therapists involved in joint health and musculoskeletal rehab who tend to assume that if we can't solve a problem, then nobody can. Chronic pain, however, is a national epidemic in the USA. It's a more prevalent health problem for the under 65 demo than heart disease, diabetes, and cancer combined. Employers spend more than $1,200 per employee per year on musculoskeletal. It's about 3 times the amount for heart disease. And there's about 1.71 billion people in the world suffering from chronic MSDs. And MSD is a musculoskeletal disorder. I'm probably going to refer to that term MSD. Musculoskeletal research on combating chronic pain has been suboptimal, and the answers seem elusive. But people usually don't die from their chronic MSK or musculoskeletal conditions and MSDs. Instead, they get trapped in this vicious cycle and deal with the consequences: depression, opioid addiction, loss of work, and life potential. As you can see from this busy slide, traditional therapies fail to solve chronic MSDs 85% of the time. For the last 5 years, I've been out of the operating room, due in part to a chronic musculoskeletal condition. I spent my operative years doing over 6,000 surgeries and getting reimbursed by the Western medical system. I now consult in orthopedics, but have been hard-pressed to look past the operating room and the acute care of people. I was an orthopedic patient, became an orthopedic surgeon called Gone Doctorpreneur, and I wrote a book that's here for you. It's on the tables with an outstanding doctorate of physical therapy named Karina Wu. I encourage you to take one with you. My journey continued as I became an inventor, true innovator, then entrepreneur. In my past, I was part of the we, who assumed that if we can't figure this out, no one can. But the current process is simply not working. This slide compares acute versus chronic illness. The U.S. insurance code system, the ICD codes, E&M, CPT codes, they evolved around real diseases. So the U.S. healthcare system invented disease names for conditions and maladaptations that may do damage and cause real diseases in the future. For example, type 1 diabetes is a disease such that your body doesn't make insulin, and if you don't take it, you will die. Type 2 diabetes, however, is more of a condition. It is high blood sugar, and therefore, chronic high blood sugar can cause damage enough to cause a disease. Another good example is rheumatoid arthritis versus osteoarthritis. Rheumatoid arthritis is an autoimmune phenomenon that needs medical treatment for a quality of life. Osteoarthritis, however, is a condition more than a disease. I liken it to car tires. There's no thin tread disease. It's just that your tires and the treads are wearing out. Low back pain, in addition, it's not a disease, but it's a condition. Diseases demand a focus on the symptoms or the point of pain, more like police work. Conditions or disorders, on the other hand, they demand root cause evaluation, more like detective work. Western medicine is poor at detective work, because there's little to no incentive to prevent disease or injuries. If we look at this slide here, this is correlation does not imply causation, and diabetes is one good example. Diabetes is the condition of having obesity plus diabetes, and there are plenty of diabetics who are not obese. So you have to question, is it correlation versus causation? In the musculoskeletal world, especially with physical therapy, we are guilty of assigning causation before any detective work. A colleague of mine had a 60-year-old tennis player come into the office, and his left knee was hurting him. And he said, "Doc, can't understand why my left knee has been hurting for 4 months." The doctor did a good history, a good examination, took some x-rays, came back and said, "Oh, your x-rays look great. It's just an aging process." The patient looked at him and said, "Doc, how old is my other knee?" Once a curious innovator takes a step back and gathers all the information and looks at things from another point of view, the root cause can usually be determined. At that point, breakthrough science can be discovered and implemented, processes and actions that get to the root of problems. These solutions, in our case, come from creative interlopers or outsiders. Instead of being resistant, stuck in their knowingness, and closed-minded, perhaps the Western medical establishment can learn from the outliers in the medical profession. When it comes to innovation, the U.S. healthcare system is a prisoner of incremental improvement thinking. That's building on what is already present. Perhaps it's complacency, resistance to change, or the fear of financial impacts. Breakthrough science and transformational thinking create true innovation. But we, channeling my old self, tend not to have an innovative bone in our body. Here's evidence to that. The IHI triple aim was postulated first in 1991 by the Institute for Healthcare Improvement. It's a silly attempt at progressive innovation. Obviously, we as a society want goals of increased population health, lower healthcare costs, and an elevated patient experience. There's no breakthrough innovation here. We are just failing to achieve this. Think how a true entrepreneur and inventor like Elon Musk would simply laugh at this. Let's think outside the box. When it comes to a 100-year-old problem stuck at an 85% failure rate, incremental innovation simply isn't enough. At PopDoc, we feel the need to shake up the status quo about how we look at and deal with chronic MSDs. Remember, these are not diseases but maladaptations that are preventable and largely reversible. There may be some pushback from our "how could we have missed this" peers. Perhaps one of you is already planning to challenge me. That's how ingrained the status quo actually is. Let's take a quick look back at some of the pioneers in postural therapy, including Pete Agoscu, a Marine sergeant, and Esther Gokhale, who traveled the world and took pictures. Look at the perfect posture of the working woman, the elder statue, and the 3-year-old. Unfortunately, the work of the postural therapist has been rejected and not embraced by the 6 words. This slide refers to and offers a deeper distinction into the patient who asked, "How old is the other knee?" Our detective work started with postural abnormalities as the main suspect. We are born with, most of the time, perfect primal posture. Then life happens, whether it's from injury, social media, too many sports, or a lack of understanding. The spine and joints, governed by brain maps and influenced by activities, rewire into poor posture. And going to the gym and getting body beautiful won't necessarily fix and can potentially exacerbate the problem. After exploring the roots of human evolution and staying curious, we discovered that so often humans who never stopped doing all the natural, functional movements of our ancestors, the hunter-gatherers, rarely lose their primal posture. This is part of the root cause and has been deeply studied and written about by Dr. Daniel Lieberman, a human evolutionary biologist from Harvard. The postural therapy pioneers taught us to look at the entire kinetic chain. Remember the old song, "Dem bones"? The ankle bone's connected to the leg bone's connected to the knee bone. We realized that for chronic musculoskeletal problems, the solutions lie in restoring normal to the entire musculoskeletal system, from the head and neck to the toes. We also noted that the art and science of full kinetic chain postural therapy is over 50 years old, yet never really caught on. We decided the detective work was ongoing but not yet complete. The answers did involve the full kinetic chain, but there was something missing, something more. That something explains how Bruce Lee's famous one-inch punch was real and not a trick. At 135 pounds, Bruce could send a 200-pound fellow martial artist flying across the stage with a punch of only an inch or two in length. We decided that that something, which was evident in the world of elite athletes, is the key ingredient to the secret sauce for breaking through the 15% success rate or glass ceiling solving chronic musculoskeletal pain and dysfunction. We feel we are onto something big. Bruce Lee's secret was fascia training, even though he had no idea what that was. I attested it is okay to look outside our current medical mindset. We at PopDoc got inspired by Bill Parisi's 2019 book. Bill's an athletic trainer who's been treating elite athletes for 25 years. Bill was inspired by a book from 2015 and another book from 2001 written by a masterful massage therapist. Fascia training works when the full kinetic chain is nearly perfect. In med school, I and all other med students, we cut through and discarded the inner mesh, or the fascia, during anatomical dissection around muscles, bones, joints, skin, and the organs. In reality, fascia has more nerve endings per square inch than any other tissue in the human body. So the postural therapy pioneers were onto something big, but they stayed in the musculoskeletal world. Fascia training brings the neurological aspects of human performance. We submit that NMSK, or neuromusculoskeletal, will become a next big thing for solving the chronic pain epidemic. To successfully optimize the fascia system, which means to restore its natural integrity, one must develop therapeutic exercise routines that incorporate some functional exercises, those that are at least somewhat ballistic versus slow, like an easy jumping jack or a mini lunge, that gently and progressively tack the system along its lines. There are around 7 key planes that our limbs move to activate muscles along fascia lines. Traditional physical therapy tends to focus on only one point of concern. Quite often, PT treats patients that are too injured, too frail, too inflexible, or in too much pain to do functional activities and exercises. Fascia training, on the other hand, is multiplanar and it's applicable as a post-rehab or a prehab tool. It's a part of prevention and early intervention programs. However, there are no insurance codes for this yet, so it remains largely ignored by the Western medical establishment. Watching elite and professional athletes perform is a huge international pastime and a robust form of entertainment. The physical agility and actions performed are awe-inspiring. Note that when you watch an elite athlete, like a sprinter, his or her fingers are fixed and the opposite limbs are moving in synchrony, proving the entire fascia system is stiff and working together. I encourage you guys to have a little audience participation at this time. Let's do a little activity. Place your left hand firmly on your left thigh. Pick up your index finger while your hand is still on your thigh and try and slap your thigh a few times. Slap down your finger. Now take your other hand, the right index finger, pull back your left index finger, and then try and slap your thigh. Do that several times. Hopefully you're feeling an example of potential versus kinetic energy. There was more force in that second aspect of the demonstration. That's your fascia system at work. So we posit that restoring primal posture and achieving fascia optimization back to how it was as a 3-year-old is the key to break through the 85% chronic pain failure rate. Humans participate in sports, have a dominant side, and are individuals. Even non-athletes or regular people can suffer musculoskeletal dysfunction and insidious imbalances, but this does not mean they are destined for lost potential, chronic physical pain, or chronic MSDs. Kay Glynn is an exceptional example. She does not just go to the gym, do cardio, or do yoga. She keeps practicing functional movements like track and field. At 57 years old, she is thriving. There are many examples of aging individuals that have astonishing musculoskeletal abilities. So age does not correlate to osteoarthritis. Let's use the right words to describe the graceful aging and prolonged performance in all areas of life: work, recreation, and play, and pain as a secondary gain. PopDoc is paving the way to new solutions. We're at an early stage of harnessing the natural power of the human neuromusculoskeletal system into digital therapeutic programs. It would be foolish to bet against PopDoc. There is disruption ahead, and it began by us challenging and lovingly nudging those promoting incremental innovation. By encouraging them to open their eyes, to work together using better words to describe bodily processes, we positively shape the future of those suffering with chronic pain and chronic musculoskeletal disorders. Thanks a ton for listening. I'm appreciative of the opportunity to share this with you and would like you to think about the one body you have and what you're doing to preserve an active lifestyle and live with less physical pain. Thanks a lot for listening. I have a few minutes for questions if you have any. I'm not carrying those books back to New York, so please feel free to take one home. And once again, I appreciate the opportunity here at Health 2.0. Yes, sir.
I was wondering whether subduing the pain and not listening to your own body, subduing the pain, everyday pain with, generic medicine, and responding to the cause, trying to adjust the problem instead of shutting. Does that contribute to the problem?
Quite often, yes. And you bring up a good point that we at PopDoc, we create software solutions for the physical ailments and for keeping the physical body functioning. But as we've heard here at this conference, the mental side of things, or the emotional, mental, as well as the nutritional side of things. So to me, it's a three-legged stool that will help bring people to optimize their function and diminish their pain. Pain medication does not cure or heal, it just suppresses symptoms, and there are other ways to attack your pain. And I'm a huge proponent of the fascia system. By doing the right things to it, you will release that pent-up energy it might have around that point of pain and allow it to flow more freely.
Yeah, so not probably the right culture of trying to suppress pain easily by taking generic medication and not adjusting your lifestyle in exchange of that. So this is, I think, a serious problem.
Huge problem, and as I alluded to, since it's not reimbursed by our sick care system, then the doctors and the people guiding patients in their health journey do not have the incentive always to do the right thing. In addition, people take themselves for granted often and participate in things that are not maybe best for their body because they don't, I don't know why, and that's number two. Number three is motivation. So the word motivation is true to somebody and very hard for others. So it's hard to begin to motivate people. At PopDoc, we believe in intrinsic motivation, such that if you start doing the right exercises, which can be very simple, and you feel a little bit better, it will give you the internal drive to do more, to keep this less pain, more function feeling going. And when you first approached the microphone, you spoke about how chronic pain takes away from our focus at work, takes away from our livelihood and our family, and might, make you bark at somebody that you didn't want to because you're projecting it onto them, or if you're not part of a team because you're missing work for 2 or 4 weeks due to your chronic pain or your surgery. So there's a huge paradigm shift that has to slowly occur, and this conference in itself is bringing up new innovations new types of services to the market to help really better the health of people, populations, and ultimately humanity.
Good morning, and thank you for your talk.
Quite welcome.
Can you hear? Yeah, with
I can hear.
osteoarthritis.
Yeah.
Do you, including your book, is there other places we could find ways to stop the degeneration over time so we can still stay functional?
Yeah, it's a multifaceted approach, as that gentleman just alluded to. It's a lifestyle change, and so, you know, me as an orthopedic surgeon, part of my social life is just answering questions about why does my X hurt, why does my shoulder hurt, so osteoarthritis, as we also noted in the talk, is so common that there's probably everybody here in this room sustained a acute injury of pain in their lifetime, or just felt a chronic pain, which is pain lasting more than 3 months. And so dealing with it is not easy. So it takes an internal drive and an understanding through education of what my joint is, why it's working the way it is, what's wrong with it. But I want to go deeper and farther and say it's part of your fascia system. So if you have any surgery, they cut through the skin, they cut through the fascia, and I always like to tell patients who are stiff after knee surgery, your joint's deep inside and you have to go through all the tissues and then you sew it back together, and so it all gets smushed up into one ball of scar tissue or an internal scab. So unless you have good treatment in the first 2 months after your acute surgery or your acute trauma, you run the risk of having some chronic issues. So through massage therapy and regaining full range of motion and ultimately working on your balance, posture, and your fascia system can help you restore and live with as least pain as possible. So my book is closely affiliated with my website, and my business card is inside there, where there are exercises you can pull down to your smartphone. We're in version 1, so we're direct to consumer, but ultimately we are business to business solution. So the businesses allow all their patients, clients, members, or employees to access the site free ad infinitum to help them do their 5 or 7 minutes of the right exercises at the right time to allow them to stay happy and to be focused.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for listening. If there's any more questions, I'm happy to address them. And if not, I am here for the next day and a half or so. So I'd love to connect with whomever.